Hello, my name is Lee Wright. I'm the Access Minister at Northland Church, a church distributed in Orlando, Florida. We're so glad that you chose to come and be a part of this seminar this morning. I'm really encouraged because you really began to think ahead of time about what it would be like to have people with disabilities serve rather than just being served. So who am I? Well, like I said, my name is Laura Lee. I have the privilege of serving in a congregation that is fairly large in the Orlando area. And I serve in the capacity of Access Minister, and so I look at disability from birth all the way to grave, and I ensure that a congregation feels like they can be involved any way they want to be. And so that includes the whole area of service. I'm passionate about this whole topic because I was born with cerebral palsy. And although my CP is very mild, there were accommodations that I needed along the way to be able to really perform well and to really become an active member of not only my faith community here, but even in society in general. I'm an old lady, and so I really was in a position very early on where I was a pioneer, one of those first kids to be mainstreamed before there were really specialized teachers in education that worked in typical schools. When it came to kind of camping, sports, all of those types of things, I was always on the cutting edge of kind of what people with disability could do. I've been a believer for many years, but my life really turned a corner when I started attending church at Northland about 14 or 15 years ago. And Northland was really unique in that I walked through the doors, and their whole push at that point was not to be inward focused, but always outward focused. And it didn't matter which activity I chose to be a part of, whether it was a singles ministry, prayer ministry, or in the end, missions. I was always included, and really, Northland was the first time that disability really was not a factor in the way that I serve. In 1997, God began to really speak to me about going into full-time service, and I just kind of laughed. Look at me, I'm just a social worker. I work with individuals with disabilities. I certainly am not cut out to do any full-time ministry. And then very quickly after those kinds of conversations started to happen between me and the Holy Spirit, I had the opportunity to go on my first overseas missions trip. And to say that the Holy Spirit spoke loudly was just a real understatement. Even when I was making those decisions as to whether or not to go on the trip, I kind of would bring up all these red flags in terms of disability. I can't do this. I won't be able to walk long distances. People will have to carry my baggage. They'll have to, I do things at a slower pace. And one by one, I had a team leader who just nixed all of those ideas and really believed that I should be a part of that team. That was when God really began to say, I am preparing a place for you overseas. And again, I'm like, I like warm weather. I don't learn languages very well. I barely speak good English, and it's hard to understand me. And so 2 years later, I landed up on the missions field in England, working not only with refugees, but really helping churches begin to look at including people with disabilities. So that really is my background. Where are we going to go the rest of today? We're going to talk about why we were created. Why did God create us to be servants? Or did God create us to be servants? Would really be what we're looking at. How do we, especially for our friends that have intellectual disabilities, how do we help them find an area that they're passionate about and plug them in, not only within a local faith community, but to be able to serve locally and even globally. And so we'll talk about assessment. And then we're going to talk about the challenges of setting up service opportunities and the value of having individuals with disabilities serving rather than the individuals who are being served. And then we will talk very briefly, because it really could be a seminar within itself, on how do we create successful environments for service. So, why do we serve? Well, the real common or the great answer really comes from 1 Samuel 12:24, where he says, only fear the Lord and serve him faithfully with all of your heart, for consider what great things he has done for you. Man, serve him. And so the first part of this is a commandment, or something that God tells us he wants us to do. He wants us to serve the Lord faithfully with all of our heart, not just part of our heart, but all of our heart. And he didn't make the distinction between, well, those of you that are really capable and have all these really great skills to serve, those are the folks that I want to serve. He says all of us are going to serve. And for me, it's consider the great things he has done for you. out of what Jesus has done on the cross for us, we have such a privilege of being able to give back in a mighty way and serve him in a mighty way. The other reason is Paul tells us in Galatians that we serve because we love one another. What a great thing to know that service not only comes out of a love for Jesus, but a love for humankind. What else does the Bible say about serving? In Ephesians 2:10, we are told that we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, service, which God has prepared beforehand, and we should walk in them. So, not only are we created for service or his workmanship, he tells us to do good works, and the fact that God has gone ahead of us to do to prepare these types of service projects for us. That's really exciting that we have a Father who thinks so highly of us, who thinks ahead of time in terms of even where we should serve and how we serve. Again, it's in 2 Timothy, it says, "It is he who saved us and chose us for his holy work." Again, it's all about what he has done for us, because we don't deserve it, the Bible tells us, because he has done his plan long before the world has begun. So even before I was born, you were born. Abraham Lincoln was born. Even before Jesus was, well, not Jesus. Even as the world was being created, he was planning these things. And then we're gonna just begin to make that shift in terms of, well, do we all have gifts? You know, many of us, when we begin to hear that call of service, we think that we have nothing to give. Well, in reality, that's absolutely true. None of us have anything to really give. It's really that old quote that many of us hear in church circles. God equips the called, and he often calls the ill-equipped. So 1 Peter says that each of us has received a gift to use to serve one another, and as God's stewards of God's varied grace. So really, we have been given gifts for the purpose of service. Again, one of my favorite quotes and biblical quotes when talking about service is something that comes directly out of Romans. This is a little bit long, and I don't have the best reading skills, but I really want all of us to hear this. In this way, we are like the various parts of a human body. Each part gets its meaning from the body as a whole, not the other way around. The body we're talking about is Christ's body of chosen people. Each of us finds our meaning and function as part of his body, but as a chopped off finger or cut off toe, we wouldn't amount for much, would we? So since we find ourselves fashioned into all the excellently formed and marvelously functionally parts in Christ's body, let's go ahead and be what we were made to be, without envying or pridefully comparing ourselves with each other or trying to be something we are not. So, what this passage really begins to tell us, that God has given us all different giftings. A finger and a toe do very different things. Without a toe, we don't have the abilities to balance. Without fingers, it's difficult to write, eat, manipulate things. With our arms, it's hard to get around. Without legs, it's difficult to do things. And so, but each of those things, a leg, an arm, a finger, a toe, a tongue, your eyes, ears, all have a very significant and important function in a human body, and it's also that way within the body of Christ and being his servant. So somebody who may be really great at hospitality may not be the best administrator or the best preacher, or someone who has the gift of teaching may absolutely hate to be in that position of having to meet and greet people, or even pray with people. So really, in order for Christ's body to be healthy and functioning, everyone needs to be a part of that, and that really includes those of us and those of you that live with a disability or special needs. Historically, it's really funny when I was researching for this project. I really wanted to give that historical perspective of when did people with disabilities really begin to serve in their Christian community. And really, there has been absolutely very little written on the subject of those with disabilities serving other people. There's a whole lot written about our community being served by faith communities. And so the challenge for those of us with disabilities is really to turn the tables and really begin to look at how we can serve out in the community and really make a difference. I think that a lot of the issues come from the world, a worldview that really says that people with disabilities don't have a lot to give, but rather they need our help. And so even when we set up ministries in churches, real often there's that benevolent kind of attitude. We're going to take care of a child that has a disability, rather than having that attitude of bringing that child into church, into Sunday school, and teaching that child the Word of God and what it is to have a relationship with Jesus and what it means to serve. So I think serving begins very early on, and it's something that we have to change. We have to model very early as we develop our individual ministries. I think too the other issue, and we're going to talk a little bit further about this later on in the session, is so often we look for easy solutions. If you got someone who utilizes a wheelchair, it just takes a whole lot more prep in terms of where's that person going to serve, what is that going to look like, what is the image that whole dynamic presents to the congregation and to the public. What does it look like when a teenager with autism really says he wants to be a part of the music team? Or what does it look like when someone that maybe has some hand coordination problems says they want to be a part of the video team? What does that look like? I mean, those are all kinds of issues that so often it's really easy to say, oh no, you can't do that. You can't run the camera because you shake too much. But if we sit with the team, we can often find a place where that individual can be useful and be significant in that team. And we can find a place where a person in a wheelchair, it's so easy to say, oh, we'll just make him a greeter or whatever. But really, we need to be looking at what those individual passions are for those individuals, versus making it really easy and just plugging them in. I mentioned passion a little while ago. What does that look like? How do we find passion? We all have a place of passion. A few things that we want to do is when we're looking at how we find someone's passion, we want to ask simple questions like, what do you like to do? In my case, if I had to be a greeter, I certainly wouldn't like that, if I had to do that on a daily basis. But if you give me a group of people where I can talk about what your relationship with Jesus is, where you are in your walk, give me the opportunity to pray with them, teach them, talk about faith and disability, I'm there all day long. If you let me live in the world of vision, I'm there all day long. But if I had to do that gift of administration and be a detailed kind of person, oh man, I would just be tired. When I'm helping people find passion, I start with really basic things like, what do you like to do? Do you like to garden? Do you like to cook? Do you like to hang with people? Do you like to study? I really, really begin to hear what that individual loves to do, because God not only gives us kind of those spiritual gifts, but He also gives us those natural abilities that we kind of work off of and grow. What have you been trained to do? A lot of our friends go to what's called training centers when they're adults. Many of those training centers train for specific jobs. It might be collating, it might be food service, it might be cleaning, it might be a receptionist. And so and some of our friends have college educations, and so we want to find out what their area of expertise is. Everybody has an area of expertise. It's a matter of whether or not we put value on those kinds of tasks. What makes you happy doing a job? In my case, I know what makes me happy. I know that when I can move an individual from where they are in their faith, whether they're a believer or a long time, a new believer or a long time believer, if I can move them one more step to having a relationship with Jesus and a deeper relationship with Jesus, I am ecstatic. When we're evaluating people, there are some really great tools available that we can use. Those tools can be spiritual assessments. A lot of times they come either in hard copy, or a lot of times now you can find them online. Those assessments will walk you through and kind of look at what an individual is good at, what they're not good at, what gives them energy, what really makes them tired. The challenge for us is really when we begin to work with our friends that have intellectual disabilities and maybe don't have the reading skills that other individuals might have. And so the challenge is really to find a way to help them assess their abilities. Reading an assessment to another individual is a great thing as long as we don't put our kind of slant on it. If we can just say, I like to pray, and we don't shake our heads up and down and sideways, so we're not leading that individual. That's that is very much an acceptable way to get someone to look at gifting. But really, when we're dealing with our friends that have intellectual disabilities, it really is going to be those verbal conversations, and really it really becomes a matter of spending time in prayer and using your gift of discernment. I get so excited because I can think of so many great stories of kind of people who have already begun to find their passion and their place of service. Tell you about my friend Brooks. I met Brooks this summer. He's probably 10, maybe 11, maybe 12 at the very most. His mom and came to a camp that I was a part of this summer, and Brooks came along to serve with Mom. And the original assignment for Brooks and his mom was to be a buddy to another young man that had a disability. Well, about 8 hours into this kind of gig, it became very clear that this was not what Brooks was passionate about. Playing with this little boy and kind of helping this little boy was not what he was about. But his heart, it became very, very apparent, was to be the assistant of our rec director that weekend. And by the end of that week, we found Brooks just being able to anticipate almost every move that our rec director needed to happen that weekend. And the more he served, and the more he got into the role, and the more we empowered him, the more he took ownership. Brooks, by nature, is just a servant who just loves to be behind the scenes. But also having Brooks a part of our big team also presented several other challenges. Days at camp are really long. They start at 7:30 in the morning, and they don't get over much before 10 or 10:30 at night. For a child this age and with his limitations, that was a really long day. And so we as a team had to really look at how we were going to really accommodate Brooks. And so he not only felt empowered to do his job during the day, but also that he felt like he was a valued team member. And so there were nights that we were scheduled to have a meeting, and he was the type of young man that he didn't want to miss anything because he was dedicated to his job. And so if there was a meeting, he wanted to be there, even if we gave him the night off. So sometimes we would just choose not to have a nightly meeting and communicate with team members in really different ways. My friend DJ lives in Wisconsin, and DJ is a part of a team where all there are 4 guys that live in this house. DJ probably has physically more limiting disabilities than the other 3 gentlemen that live in this house. The other 3 gentlemen, they're active workers. They like to build things. They like to hammer. They like to clean up. They are just physically manly men. But DJ, he's kind of short. He's kind of little. He's artsy, and he loves to have conversations, and he loves to pray. And so his role in that team is really to be kind of that prayer warrior, kind of that spiritual director, all of those kinds of things. School is, each of those men in that house have contributed to the success of a growing camp ministry in northern Wisconsin. My friend Tammy, Tammy and I met here at Northland many years ago. She was a missionary, and she worked down at a local missions agency, and she answered phones, and she did clerical work, and everybody loved her there. But she always had this sense that God was calling her to be more than a receptionist or a assistant. She had the desire to teach, but that group of people really could not think outside of the box. Tammy now works in a missions organization serving others that have disabilities, but she's teaching, and she enjoys life. She enjoys getting up and working on a daily basis. My brother Milo has an intellectual disability, and from little on, Milo had the abilities to anticipate my mom and her husband's every need. If my mom was baking in the kitchen, he just was able to anticipate whatever she needed, whether it was flour, whether it was apples, whether or not something needed to be cleaned. The same with my mom's husband, Ken. When they were working with tools, he just knew instinctively, and he loves to absolutely serve behind the scenes. He would never really want that upfront kind of thing, but God has just gifted him with the ability to really serve, and so in all of this, when we're looking at individuals, we really have to do that. We have to look at them as just that individuals that God created for His service and with purpose. It's He has created all of us with really deep passions and really great giftings, not for our individual gain, but all for the kingdom gain. So, how do we get people into service? What does that look like? How do they serve? The number one thing is to be intentional. If we begin to think already when we're planning our teams at church about being intentional about including people, we're going to be much more successful. If your greeter team is thinking about adding someone that has a disability, think through where is that going to be? Where is it best for that person to stand? What is that person going to need in order to be successful? In some churches, I have a friend who loves to greet, but he doesn't have finger movement, and so like giving up both hands or anything like that, it's really difficult for him. And so what that church does in particular is they do a team of 2, and so they tag team. So really, when you're advertising, this sounds like maybe a really corny thing, but because, again, our friends have not been traditionally invited to serve, what we want to do is give them the opportunity to serve. And so when we advertise, we want to say individuals with disability or special needs are welcome to be a part of this team. And so they know ahead of time that we're thinking about welcoming and including those individuals. When you were advertising, think about what kinds of accommodations you're willing to provide. If you have someone that is hearing impaired and needs an interpreter, are you willing to provide that? Do you have the skills to do that? If it's a music team and they need large print music in order to be a part of the team, are you willing to provide that? Think through ahead of time what you're going to need. Think through where in your building you're going to hold meetings, because if you're inviting someone with a disability to your team meeting and you're meeting on the 3rd floor and there's no elevator, we have a little bit of a problem. So really think through kind of all of those issues. Also, if you know ahead of time that there's a person with a disability coming to serve on your team, what you want to do is twofold. You want to have a conversation with the individual that has a disability, talk through any accommodations that he or she may need. Sometimes it's a matter of, I'd like to do this, but I've got some sensory issues going on, and so to be in a corridor or a hallway where there's tons of people, I can't do that. And so giving that individual the abilities to express what he or she needs, and also giving them the option of sharing with the team about his or her disability, or asking for permission to be able to share with the team any limitations that that person has. We never want to just go ahead and have that conversation with the team without having the permission from the individual that has a disability. Even if you're working with families, you want to talk to moms and dads and before you talk to the rest of the team at hand. So often when we develop projects outside of our church, so often we want to include people with disabilities. But what we do is we set up other projects, or we set projects that include a project to do with disability. I encourage you to look outside of that box. So if you're going to the food pantry with a group of people to stock shelves, invite your friends that have disability. Or if you're going to clean up a park, invite friends. Don't be looking to go necessarily to the local group home just because you have friends with disability in your team. So really be thinking that our friends, people with disability, have as much value and can give to your life as much as somebody else. It's a give and take relationship. So we're gonna shift and we're gonna talk about serving within the church very quickly, serving locally, and then serving globally. Serving inside the church, we're just gonna recap some of the things that we've talked about already. We want individuals to discover their gifts. Have open, direct discussions with different department heads. Like, for instance, sometimes I get folks here that want to serve within our children's ministry, and maybe they have some cognitive issues, or I have a friend who utilizes a wheelchair. What we do is we have really open discussions about what it would look like for that person to serve with department heads. Because if you can get department heads to buy into what you're doing, you're setting up the department for success. You're setting up the individual that wants to serve for success, and you're setting up the people that he or she wants to serve for success. So it's really important that we have buy-in from everyone. A lot of times our friends will require some extra training, and so if you can put yourself or somebody else within that team in a position where you can shadow them and kind of teach them the routine of the day, what they're gonna need, what that looks like, and give online positive feedback in the moment. That's going to be really helpful versus having somebody, 3 days later come to you and say, John was just very inappropriate with the lady with the baby. If we can correct those things in the moment, we really want to do that. And really, the more that we can think outside of the box in terms of having a person serve, the better off we're all gonna be. Here at Northland, we spend a lot of time serving outside the doors of Northland. So several times a month, we have teams all over Central Florida serving. What we've just begun to do is really be intentional about including our families and individuals that have disabilities in service projects. And what we do is I sit with our service coordinator here, and we go through the list of projects coming up, and we kind of decide, hey, this is a really great family-friendly kind of service project, and and you know what, this isn't going to be really great for our friends that have sensory issues, or our friends that have boundary issues, and we go through and we pick one or two or maybe three really great service projects who are going to be really great for our families, and those are the ones that we promote to our families and our individuals. Then and even before we promote, then I begin to have conversations with the agency where we're going, in terms of, okay, I have these 6 families who are coming. 3 of our families have children with autism. They want to work, but frankly, they may only work 25 or 30 minutes, and they might have to go, or they might have to come in and out the doors, or whatever it is. I make sure that the physical plant is accessible, and I begin to dialogue with the directors of the agency to talk through just what it looks like for a person to serve. And we talk about the benefits of having a person with a disability really serve. Because a lot of times people with disability, because the unemployment and underemployment rates in our community are staggering. Many of our friends don't get jobs, and so the only way that they get out and really work is really in those volunteer roles. And so we work really hard to say that, they start here on a Saturday morning project, but they might be someone that you can use Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for 4 hours in key kinds of programs. So it really becomes a win-win situation for everyone. And then we work really hard after each of those events to talk about the pitfalls of that service project. We debrief, we talk about what really went well, what was really hard. Is this an agency that we want to send our families and our individuals back again? And so there's always that ongoing feedback going on. Serving globally is the last area that we're going to talk about today. I said earlier in this presentation that I worked overseas. And part of my story, even here in Northland, was I was a Northland Sun missionary. And, in some ways, we kind of laugh now about how I was sent because I would never recommend the way that we did that. Even though I had talked in my first overseas missions trip about limitations, the 3 trips that I took overseas short-term after that, disability was just never an issue, and we never thought about it again. And when I chose to go live overseas once God called me, we never talked about it again. So here I am in a country without a car, having to walk, a couple miles to and from the grocery store and use public transportation, and we didn't think about, just what it would be to live in cold, damp England, and what it would do to my body physically. We just never had the discussion. Now, had we had those discussions, I'm not sure that any of us would have changed our minds in terms of my call to England, but I think we would have been much more intentional about planning and really talking through what I needed to be successful. And so taking our friends that have disabilities overseas is a great thing if we do the planning. So some of the things that we want to do is make sure that we go to an area that is capable of supporting our friends that have disability. Okay, if we have people with medical concerns on our team, we probably want to be closer to great hospitals, and so probably the bush is probably not going to be the place for that family, and you're going to be looking at probably more well-developed areas of the world. Maybe it's a matter of having to shorten your day to set up the team for success. It's talking about with the receiving team about what it looks like to have people with disabilities and challenges a part of the team. It's over communicating all the tiny little details and really having to think through what it looks like to have someone with huge sensory issues on a flight for 8 hours or 9 hours. It's doing those test runs ahead of time of maybe having individuals serve on a local team before they venture on an 8-hour plane trip. All of those types of things. So it's a matter of just being very, very flexible and looking again at what that individual is passionate about. My first trip was kind of a disaster. I mean, I was I had an incredible team leader who really began to see early on that me and kids at that point probably not a good mix, and all of our stuff was doing a VBS, and I just absolutely every day I walked into the gym and I would see the kids and I would just freeze. But it became very apparent very quickly in that I loved to communicate with the parents when they came to the door. I loved to communicate with the other adults who were working within the ministry, and I loved to work behind the scenes. And so, again, it really wasn't about disability as much as really having a team leader who was just so willing to listen to and see the passion that God was building in me even before I could see it. And so really your job as a team leader to folks that have disability is to really mirror kind of what's going on in them, so they can begin to see what God is doing in them. I know that we've covered a lot of information, but yet I feel like we haven't covered enough. And so in your PowerPoint slides, there is all kinds of ways to get a hold of me, either through my email or telephone, and I would love to be able to share with you in greater detail and ask and answer any questions that you might have. And I just want to leave just challenging you with the idea of infusing a spirit of service within your ministry. And I really thank you for the privilege of being able to stand here and share with you something that I personally am so passionate about, and our church is just absolutely so passionate about it. And we have a God that is passionate about using all of us in the kingdom. So, Godspeed. Thank you.